The war room beneath the Kyria had not gone dark in 41 days. Since Iran launched its first wave of ballistic missiles 22 engagements ago, the combined American and Israeli air defense network stretched across Israel, the eastern Mediterranean, and 3 U.S. Navy destroyers positioned in the Red Sea had been running in a continuous state of combat readiness that no defense system in history had ever been asked to sustain. 22 waves. 1,416 missiles fired by Iran across those 22 engagements. 1,416 missiles destroyed before reaching their targets. The intercept rate was 100% and had been 100% since the first missile of the first wave was destroyed by an Arrow 3 interceptor 41 days ago over the Negev desert. Tonight, at 0130 hours local time, Iranian early warning satellites detected the launch signatures of Wave 23 rising from 4 separate sites across Western Iran simultaneously, the largest single wave yet. 94 ballistic missiles in the air at once, climbing toward the edge of space on trajectories aimed at Tel Aviv, Haifa, the Negev Nuclear Research Center, and the American THAAD battery positioned outside Jerusalem. Iran had spent 41 days watching its missiles get destroyed and had responded by firing more of them. Wave 23 was its answer. America and Israel had an answer too. Detection came from 3 sources simultaneously. An American space-based infrared system satellite tracked the launch plumes within 8 seconds of ignition. A U.S. Air Force E-3 Sentry AWACS orbiting over Cyprus picked up the rising missile signatures on its radar at 0131, and Israel's own Green Pine radar installation in the Negev locked onto all 94 contacts within 12 seconds of launch. The data from all 3 sources flowed automatically into the integrated air defense battle management system that American and Israeli engineers had spent 3 years building specifically for this scenario. A unified command architecture that assigned to intercept responsibilities across every available weapon system without human delay. By the time the first Iranian missile had been airborne for 60 seconds, every one of the 94 incoming contacts had been assigned a primary interceptor, a secondary interceptor, and a tertiary backup. Nothing was getting through. The machine had already decided that before any human being had finished reading the first alert. Wave 23 had been designed differently from the previous 22. Iranian missile commanders had studied every intercept from the previous engagements. Looking for gaps in the American and Israeli defense architecture, they found what they believed was the seam between the THAAD battery's upper tier coverage and the Arrow 3 system's engagement envelope at altitudes between 40 and 60 kilometers. If missiles could be programmed to fly flatter trajectories that kept them in this altitude band longer, Iranian planners calculated that the intercept geometry would be more challenging and some warheads might slip through. 40 of the 94 missiles in Wave 23 had been reprogrammed with exactly this low depressed trajectory profile. The other 54 flew standard ballistic arcs designed to saturate the defense systems, while the 40 low trajectory missiles tried to exploit the gap. It was the most sophisticated Iranian missile attack of the entire war. It was also the last one they would ever plan. The THAAD battery outside Jerusalem engaged first. It's an MTPY-2 radar, the most powerful mobile ballistic missile defense radar ever built, tracking all 94 contacts simultaneously and prioritizing the 54 standard trajectory missiles that were coming down fastest. 8 THAAD interceptors launched in a ripple sequence over 40 seconds, climbing to intercept altitude at Mach 8 and destroying 8 of the highest priority incoming warheads in the upper atmosphere. The intercept explosions were visible from the ground in Jerusalem as brief flashes of light at the edge of space, each one marking the end of a missile that had traveled 1,400 kilometers and would never complete its journey. Simultaneously, 2 Israeli Arrow 3 batteries fired 12 interceptors, targeting the next priority layer of incoming missiles. The modified low-trajectory warheads that Iranian planners had hoped would exploit the altitude seam. The Arrow 3 system's fire control software had been updated specifically to handle this profile 3 weeks earlier by a joint American-Israeli engineering team that had anticipated exactly this Iranian countermeasure. The gap the Iranians had found no longer existed. All 12 Arrow 3 interceptors found their targets. In the eastern Mediterranean, USS Carney, USS Roosevelt, and USS Gravely had been on continuous combat watch for 41 days. All three Arleigh destroyers had their NSPY-6 radars locked onto the Iranian launch sites before the missiles were 30 seconds airborne. And their Mk-41 vertical launch cells had been loaded exclusively with SM-3 Block IIA interceptors. The most capable, sea-based ballistic missile defense weapon in the American arsenal, capable of hitting targets in space at ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers. The three destroyers fired in a coordinated sequence, launching 21 SM-3 interceptors that climbed out over the Mediterranean and began hunting the mid-course phase of the Iranian missiles while they were still above the atmosphere. 18 of the 21 interceptors achieved direct hit kills. Kinetic energy intercepts so precise that the destroyed warheads simply ceased to exist as functioning weapons, their components dispersing harmlessly in near space. 3 missiles required a second SM-3 shot. All 3 were destroyed. The missiles that survived the upper and mid-course engagement layers, now reduced from 94 to 31, entered the terminal defense envelope over Israeli airspace and encountered the densest point defense network ever assembled. David's Sling batteries positioned north and south of Tel Aviv engaged the medium-range threats, firing stunner interceptors and paired shots that achieved kills on 19 of the remaining 31 warheads above 15 kilometers altitude. The Iron Dome batteries ringing Tel Aviv, Haifa, and the Negev activated for the first time in Wave 23, engaging the final 12 warheads that had surveyed every previous intercept layer. Iron Dome's Tamir interceptors, guided by the battle management system that had been tracking these specific warheads since they left Iranian soil 8 minutes earlier, destroyed all 12 in rapid succession. The last intercept occurred at 0139 hours and 44 seconds local time, 8 minutes and 44 seconds after the first Iranian missile ignited its engine, 1,400 kilometers away. 94 missiles launched. 94 missiles destroyed. Wave 23 had achieved exactly the same result as Waves 1 through 22. 0 impact on Israeli territory, 0 Israeli casualties, and a defense system that had performed at 100% efficiency for the 41st consecutive day. In the Iranian Missile Command Center, the officers who had designed the low-trajectory countermeasure sat in silence, watching their battle damage assessment screens show nothing but intercept confirmations. The gap they had found was closed. The saturation strategy had failed again. And the war that Iran had begun 41 days ago, with the belief that enough missiles fired at enough targets would eventually overwhelm any defense system, had instead produced the most extraordinary sustained air defense performance in the history of warfare, and left Iran's strategic missile force depleted by more than 60%, with nothing to show for it. Wave 24 would never be authorized. The math had become impossible. Somewhere between the launch sites in western Iran and the skies above Israel, 41 days of missiles had proven a truth that Iranian commanders had spent years refusing to accept, that the American and Israeli air defense network was not a system that could be overwhelmed. It was a system that got better every time someone tried.